All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something that sounds a little counterintuitive, but it's a huge deal in AI. We're talking about teaching a machine to be, well, pessimistic. It's a technique called conservative Q learning, or CQL for short. That Q just stands for the quality of any given action. And believe me, it's a whole new way for AI to learn from what's already happened.
So, let's kick things off with a big question. Can an AI actually learn a new, really complex skill without ever trying it first? I mean, think about it. You can't let a robot learn surgery by trial and error on a real person, right? Or a self-driving car learn about black ice by, well, crashing. The stakes are just way, way too high. So the real challenge is, can it learn just by watching?
And this leads us to the dream of what's called offline reinforcement learning. The whole idea is to teach an AI from a fixed library of past experiences. That's it. It doesn't get to go out and try new things. It's kind of like trying to become a world-class chef by only reading cookbooks, but you're never allowed to actually cook anything yourself.
So first up, let's talk about why this is such a big deal. What's the incredible promise of learning this way?
Well, the potential is just massive. You could have robots learning super delicate surgical techniques just by studying recordings of the world's best surgeons. You could have self-driving cars learning from a massive database of millions of miles of human driving data, all the tricky situations we've already figured out. Even the recommendation engines you use every day could get so much smarter. This is really a kind of holy grail for practical real-world AI. But, and it's a big but, there has been this one huge problem that's held the entire field back for years. We're going to call it the over-optimism trap. Here's the core issue. When you give a standard AI algorithm a fixed set of data, it has this tendency to get dangerously overconfident about things it's never seen before. It starts to invent these wildly optimistic outcomes for brand new, totally untested ideas. It's a bit like a gambler who's had one lucky streak and suddenly thinks they can't lose.
Let's go back to our chef to see what this looks like. Okay, so the cookbook has a 5-star recipe for sourdough bread, and it has an amazing recipe for chocolate sauce. A standard AI, our optimistic chef, looks at this and goes, you know what? Bread is good, chocolate sauce is good. If I mix them together, a chocolate yeast loaf has to be incredible. And of course, the result is a complete disaster. The AI is making a combination it has never seen in its data, and it's just assuming way too optimistically that it's going to be great.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. The researchers behind this paper put it perfectly. They say this problem leads to erroneously optimistic value function estimates. Now, that value function is just the AI's internal score for how good it thinks a move is. So what they're saying, in technical terms, is that the AI basically lies to itself about how great its terrible ideas are.
And just look at how bad this problem gets. This table shows it all. On a simulated robotics task, other AIs were asked to predict how well they'd do. The true score they got was, say, 58. But one method predicted it would score, get this, 885,000 points higher than it actually did. It was completely, absurdly confident in a strategy that was just okay. That's the over-optimism trap in a nutshell.
So, how in the world do you solve this? Well, the creators of CQL had this really brilliant, simple idea. What if we made the AI a little less of an optimist? What if we made it conservative?
So let's bring in a new chef, not an optimist. This one is our new conservative chef.
This new chef has a golden rule, and it's pretty simple. First, trust the cookbook. Figure out the real value of the recipes you've actually seen in the data. Second, and this is the absolute key, be super skeptical of everything else. Actively assume that any new recipe, anything you haven't seen before, is probably a bad idea. And third, what you end up with is a safe, reliable result because you've learned to avoid all that wishful thinking.
And this really is the fundamental shift in thinking. The old way was always about find the absolute best possible move, even if I have to invent it. CQL's method flips that on its head. It says, nope, first things first, let's just avoid all the really bad moves. It's a move away from blind optimism and towards strategic pessimism. And it works.
So, the big question is, does this conservative approach actually pay off? Well, let me tell you, the results are nothing short of dramatic. Check this out.
On the classic Atari game Qbert, they gave the AI a tiny sliver of data to learn from. Just 1% of all the possible experiences. And CQL performed an incredible 36 times better than the previous state-of-the-art methods. That's not just a little better, that's a whole different league. And you see it even more clearly on these really complex robotics tasks, especially when the AI is trying to learn from a messy mix of data from both beginners and experts. The old methods, they just get confused by the bad data and score around like 10. But CQL, it cuts through the noise, finds the good stuff, and just towers over them with a score above 110. And this isn't just about video games or simple simulations. For the very first time, this conservative approach allowed an AI to learn really complicated real-world robotics just from watching. On the left, you see a robotic hand learning tricky manipulation. On the right, a robot learning to do kitchen chores. All of this learned from a static dataset of humans doing the same thing. It's pretty amazing. So when you zoom out, the picture is just crystal clear. Across a whole range of really hard, really realistic problems, this conservative approach just flat out works, giving you anywhere from 2 to 5 times better performance. So what does this all mean? Now that we have a way to get around that over-optimism trap, what does this technology actually unleash for us? Well, it really opens the door to a future that's powered by the mountains of data we already have. We're talking safer robots that can learn without dangerous real-world experiments. We're talking about AI in healthcare that could learn from millions of patient records to suggest better treatments. And of course, smarter systems everywhere, from your phone to your car, all learning from our past successes without repeating our failures. It turns out that by teaching an AI a little bit of healthy pessimism, a little bit of conservatism, we might have finally unlocked its ability to learn from our collective wisdom. And that leaves us with one last really big question to think about. If an AI can now safely learn from all of human history, what's the very first problem we should ask it to solve? Thanks for watching.